Okay, so here's the thing. This video is about how the Social Security Administration will go ahead and tap your phones or listen in on your phones. And the interesting thing is that I thought everybody knew about this. And one of the weird things that happened was I did one of those private sessions today. I had two of them. I had a hearing in the beginning, and then I had two private sessions. Private sessions are basically where people hire me for an hour or 30 minutes to do a consultation, and they feed me like details of some difficult problem related to their Social Security benefits, and then we kind of brainstorm on what they should do, what the fix should be, et cetera. But what happened was not what I expected. Basically, we had a good start. We were going through the stuff, and then all of a sudden, the person was like, "Hey, at least they can't tell what I'm telling people on the phone." I was like, "Of course they can. Of course they can. It's the Social Security Administration. They tap people's phones. They listen in. They do that stuff." And the person was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Well, of course they do. Of course they do." And I think part of the thing was that my brain had been biased because I was used to claimants who would do these like 1 hour consultations with me being like, "Hey, are you recording?" I'm like, "I'm not recording." And then I ask, "Are you recording?" And they're like, "Well, I'm not recording." I was like, and they're like, "Is the SSA listening?" I was like, "They can't because this is attorney-client privileged." But, and then they would go, "Okay, cool." But, the point that I'm getting at with this is that I just, for some reason, thought everybody knew the SSA could tap your phones. Like I just thought I thought everybody was on board with that. This is kind of like, remember when I started talking about, and then all the other channels copied it. So, basically when I first started talking about how supplemental security income for entrants, immigrants, asylum seekers, those who are basically trafficked through the system, right? When I started talking about how they got the 7-year, SSI benefits plus a 2-year up option, people were like mind blown. And at the same time, at first I was like, I thought everybody knew that's how these immigrants, these entrants, these asylum seekers, these refugees, that's how they're all living here because you paid for them. You know what I mean? Like you paid from your general taxes for all of these immigrants to come into this country and go on SSI for the ones that do. And then you pay for them for like 7 years. And I just thought everybody knew that. And then I realized people were shocked about it. Like, oh, how could this be? And that's kind of what this feels like for me. So what we're going to be reviewing today is how the SSA can go ahead and basically, within the scope and purpose, go ahead and listen in on your phone calls. I just thought everybody was on board, because like, honestly, I talked to you guys about what the rules are for how the investigators can follow you around, go interview people that you interact with, go to your favorite store, interview the people selling you the stuff. Like I thought everybody was like on board with this. And then anyways, the phone call I had today swerved very off track. We were supposed to talk about, an investigation that he was currently undergoing, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't get to go into, he's doing another hour. But the point is, he had a lot of questions about how can they tap, his phone? What's the difference between tapping and listening and things like that. So we're going to go through that stuff just so that everybody's kind of like on the same level, because it really surprised me when he got really upset. And I was just like, because remember, some guys do business and, some guys do business a little of this, a little of that, and I don't need to know. I don't care. It's not my thing. But the bottom line is, it was upsetting for this person. So we're going to go over the latest rules that are published for what the Social Security Administration can do when it comes to the scope and purpose of tapping your phone calls to potentially, do a criminal investigation or create an ROI report, which is where they, basically pick data together and figure out exactly. I'm sorry, my hair is all messed up right now. It's late and I've been working all day. So sorry about that. There we go. So the point is we're going to go through basically, oh my goodness, what is up? There we go. We're going to go through essentially oh my God, don't even worry. It doesn't matter. You never tune in to me to look at my face and be like, that's a good looking dude. You don't do that. You tune in to learn, which is good, which is ironic too, because other channels will probably be covering this tomorrow because that's how it goes. God, that burns me. The people who like, future check increases people and I used to work for the SSA people and the blah, 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 and all, all the insiders and you didn't know, and the magic and the secret, all those people with the Christmas stimulus crap people, all that junk. They copy what I talk about. And then a lot of them get more views than me. And I'm just like, what the hell? How did this happen? So it's fine though. It's fine. But this will call into question your ability to trust SSA employees. I guess I thought knowing that they investigate you to begin with would be one of them, but I guess not. It's fine. So let's go through it real quick, so you understand essentially what they're allowed to do. First rule that we have to cover is, and I put it in the bio, by the way. And please, if you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. They also have a hype function, HYPE, a hype function now. I don't know how it works, but maybe check it out. Point is, I put inside the bio the specific statutes that you can look at, go pull them up, check them out, etc. So this is 20 CFR section 422.701, okay? Scope and purpose. 422.701, scope and purpose. The regulations in this subpart describe the limited circumstances under which the SSA is authorized to listen into or record telephone conversations. The purpose of this subpart is to inform the public and SSA employees of those circumstances and the procedures that SSA will follow when conducting telephone service observation activities. So, just to be fair, like this is how they go ahead and, listen in on your phone calls. If you're cool, you call it tapping the phone or hacking the phone, I guess that's a cool way to put it. But yeah, they hack your phone calls. It's a federal government. Like, how much do you trust the federal government? Well, how much do they know about you? Well, they know quite a bit about you because they get access to your accounts sometimes. Do you think the federal government has an interest in you? Well, sure they do. They're paying you benefits. Oh, I paid for those benefits. Yeah, they don't always view it exactly like that. That's how you view it. They view it a little differently because remember, they got a problem. The trust funds for retirement benefits are running out. They've done their math wrong with the 1.9 claim of, basically making more children, 1.9 kids to one female. It's actually around 1.6. So the most important actuarial number that they're supposed to get right, they got wrong. Like there's no other number that's more important in Social Security math. Like the ratio of how many people are receiving versus how many people are paying in, that's important. But it's not as important as the fertility rate. Because if you get the fertility rate wrong, how many women are having children that are becoming middle-class workers that pay for Social Security benefits? Like if you get that wrong, then you're off by years. Like you're off by years as to when it's going to go bad. You know what I mean? That's why I try to tell people, like, you got to understand, like, that's really bad. So anyways, how much do you trust the federal government? You should. They have a giant military that's there to back you up, but then cross-examine that and say, well, are they going to be able to keep the trust funds solvent? No. I know we entrusted them full faith and credit, right? They don't have it. They don't have the credit and they don't have the faith, because if they had the faith, they wouldn't be 37 trillion in debt with an inability to print money or borrow money. So the credit and the faith is a little low right now in the retirement trust fund. Anyways, next rule, 20 CFR 422.705. Okay, we're just going to go through the rules. Nothing to be scared about. We're going to learn about it. Okay, it's not that scary. Okay, this is what SSA employees, So yeah, all right, here we go. When SSA employees may listen into or record telephone conversations, SSA employees may listen into or record telephone conversations on SSA telephone lines under the following conditions. Okay. YYZZ, thank you for the 99-cent donation. I super appreciate that. It looks like a little salt thingy. It is salty. It's very spicy, very spicy. SSA employees may do it under these circumstances. Number one, I'm sorry, I've been working all day at the law firm and it's rough. I'm getting that age where I can't do everything all the time. I'm starting to feel that. I'm starting to, Number one, law enforcement / national security. Okay. So when, let me give you an example. So when America lets in a bunch of immigrants who are part of a religion that is not super excited about America being a nation of English speaking or Christian speaking, but they'd prefer it be something else, right? A nation that speaks a different language or is only allowed to practice a certain religion or has its own set of special laws specific to that religion, you might see them perhaps tapping, listening in, recording phone calls to check in if they feel that a crime, is going on, and there might be some, pretty good evidence showing that there might be something going on. I'm not saying that that group potentially, and I didn't specify a group, but I'm just saying as an SSI group of entrants who might be part of a category, it's potential. I'm not saying any religion. I'm not giving any preference to any particular group or any particular thing. But the point is, I'm just saying if they were to, do that, that would be one example of it. If they're worried about potential crimes or, future things are going to happen, they might do that. When performed for law enforcement, foreign intelligence, counterintelligence, or communication security purposes, when determined necessary by the Commissioner of the Social Security or designee, such determination shall be in writing and shall be made in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, and executive orders governing such activities. Communications security monitoring shall be conducted in accordance with procedures approved by the Attorney General. Line identification equipment may be installed on SSA telephone lines to assist federal law enforcement officials in investigating threatening telephone calls, bomb threats, and other criminal activity. Okay, so if you threaten the SSA, it's right in the statute. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to take a listen. If you get super pissed at somebody at the SSA and scream at them, they could do this. And I just want to point out real quick, when you're sitting there and you're like, well, what does that really entail? Like, when could they, because remember, they have special equipment where they can, get access to your phone calls. In fact, and I'll do another video about this, one of the largest purchases that law enforcement groups make is purchasing phone records from like Verizon, T-Mobile, stuff like that. It's one of the largest purchases that they make when actually studying and investigating people. But let me read it to you again so you kind of understand the reality here, okay? It's just so you understand, okay? When performed for law enforcement, foreign intelligence, counterintelligence, or communication security purposes, that just means basically for anything that they deem where there's a potential harm at a criminal level or something that would rise to a criminal level. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things. They have a lot of systems put in place to basically, create little, schematics as to who's most likely to potentially do something that would be problematic, harmful, etc. related to this. Okay. Sunny D Badoopa Doop, thank you for the $5 donation. I super appreciate it. That's awesome. Very, very cool. I see Trinity Q said, can they check texts? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they grab texts in the criminal stuff. They grab texts all the time. If they think that there's potential fraud, they sometimes grab them for the civil stuff too. Remember, there's three potential whoopings. I'm getting better at it. 3 potential whoopings that they apply. There is number 1, administrative whooping. Number 2, civil whooping, just kind of like your torts. And then number 3, criminal actions whoopings, which is where you do criminal stuff. Okay. So it's just Rude Rabbit put in, Sam's Club is not a religion. So I've been told. I don't know, man. I mean, some people, have you seen the people that are into Target? Women love Target. I'm putting it out. All right, here we go. So here's the deal. So they're allowed to do it if it's for law enforcement and national security when performed for law enforcement, for foreign intelligence, counterintelligence, or communication security purposes when determined necessary by the Commissioner of Social Security or designee. So that was one of the big things, is that under Biden's administration, they were trying to figure out how to get them off of the administration's, the new immigrants that were able to just like get emergency funds and pay them here, pay them there, and just try to keep paying and keep them going. They wanted to get them off of those and onto the Social Security Administration's SSI program, because then they were set for like 7 years. They were going to get a check, these individuals. But then, of course, they had a lot of violence issues, and, Kamala Harris was going to go down to the border and fix things. which never actually, it was all designed. It's vote farming. It's okay. It's just, I don't know if you guys, I don't know. Let me know. Do you support vote farming? Trump does vote farming. It's totally different in the way he does it. It's called exporting people who might vote Democrat. that's the reality. But that's the way it works. That's the way it works. Okay. Peggy Yelly, thank you for the $5 donation. Love the little lemon with the lime with the little happy lip. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. So let's keep rocking through this real quick. All right. So law enforcement's allowed to do it. They've got to do it within all the regulations, executive orders. Communication security monitoring shall be conducted in accordance with, right? The procedures approved by the Attorney General. Line identification equipment may be installed on SSA telephone lines to assist federal law enforcement officials in investigating threatening telephone calls, bomb threats, and other criminal activity. So that's the statute, right? That's if you threaten the SSA, you create a threat, or you fraud in the SSA, they're gonna tap them. You know what I mean? Almost, if you're doing something that isn't linear with what your benefits are supposed to be, they may tap you. All right, next category. That was law enforcement / national security, which means basically it's just a very broad category, right? But it's got to be in writing, requested, yada yada yada. Okay, public safety. When performed by an SSA employee for public safety purposes, and when documented by written determination by the Commissioner of Social Security or designee citing the public safety needs, the determination shall identify the segment of the public needing protection and cite examples of the possible harm from which the public requires protection. Use of SSA telephone lines identified for reporting emergency and other public safety related situations will be deemed as consent to public safety monitoring and recording. So, for public safety purposes, with the commissioner or their designee on board, they can tap you. If they feel like you are causing a public safety concern, they can tap your lines. Okay, next one. Public service monitoring. Yeah, here's where it gets a little spicy, a little bit of spicy nuggets right here. When performed by an SSA employee after the Commissioner of Social Security or designee determines in writing that monitoring of such lines is necessary for the purposes of measuring or monitoring SSA's performance in the delivery of service to the public, or monitoring and improving the integrity, quality, and utility of service provided to the public. Such monitoring will occur only on telephone lines used by employees to provide SSA-related information and services to the public. Use of such telephone lines will be deemed as consent to the public service monitoring. All right, and there's more to this rule, but let me just say, this is kind of a tricky thing. So the first thing is you should think of this rule as the one where you call the SSA and they're recording you, right? And it's for public service monitoring because they're trying to improve the service that they give you. But you can see if some employees reach out and they're monitoring you and recording you, then you got to wonder, how much is it really for public service? But then you got to remember the definition of public service can include the stewardship, right? The being a good shepherd of the Social Security Administration when they believe somebody might not be as disabled as they claim they are. Some retired person, for example, isn't, putting on the books how much they're actually earning while they're working. Or there's an SSI person who's working under the table and keeping the check he gets or she gets from the SSI. You can see where it's kind of like an open interpretation there. You can see there's some schmutz there. Next one, Section D. All right. All party consent. When performed by an SSA employee with the prior consent of all parties for a specific instance, this includes telephone conferences, secretarial recordings, and other administrative practices. The failure to identify all individuals listening to a conversation by speakerphone is not prohibited by this or any other section. All right, so what does this mean before I lose my voice? So let's say you got a party call, right? Everybody says, yeah, I'm part of it. Cool. Yeah, go ahead and record me. One of the side notes that you need to know about this is that the SSA will sometimes, by federal law, only allow them to record you, but you won't be allowed to record them. Like, you can't go on federal property and record them. You can't be in a federal disability hearing and record them, because only they are allowed to record you. And that's under this whole all-party consent thing. Like when I do disability hearings, nobody is allowed to be recording. Everybody's supposed to be in a separate room away from other people, and only the SSA is allowed to record. So to be clear, right, you know what I mean? They got a little bit of an advantage here with basically creating this situation where they record you, and they're the only ones who are allowed to record you. You're not allowed to record them. And it's under the premise that it protects your privacy. All right. So there's that. Now, with that said, I've got to get a drink real quick. The drink is right over there. Hold on. I'm going to come right back. But please remember, if you enjoy this video, please remember to like and subscribe. So many of you don't hit the like button, and then people don't get to see the video. And I mean, you know, this helps me make more. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right. I have my magic juice. Here. All right, everybody. We need to take a moment, an intermission. I'm going to lose my voice otherwise. There's so much caffeine in this stuff. I know it. All right. All right, let's get into this. Next rule. And I'll do a bigger video where I explain all this stuff more, but next rule. 20 CFR, section 422.710. 20 CFR, section 422.710. Procedures SSA will follow. Okay. So this is the system that which they use, you know, to listen to you, tap your phone, you know, and federal agents install this stuff on their phone systems at the SSA to do it. All right, here we go. SSA components that plan to listen into or record telephone conversations under section 422.705B or C shall comply with the following procedures. So here's the pool rules of what they've got to follow on their end to be able to record you and tap you. Okay. Prepare a written certification of need to the Commissioner of Social Security or designee at least 30 days before the planned operational date. Okay, so step one, element one, they have to create a writing of need that they send to the commissioner at least 30 days before the planned operation date to record you. Okay. A certification as used in this section means a written justification signed by the Deputy Commissioner of the requesting SSA component or designee that specifies general information on the following: the operational need for listening into or recording telephone conversations, the telephone lines and locations where monitoring is to be performed, the position titles of SSA employees involved in the listening into or recording of telephone conversations, the general operating times, and an expiration date for the monitoring. All right, let me go through that again, because these are the elements that they have to write down before they send it to like the deputy commissioner to get the sign off, to then send it to the commissioner to go, you know, and say, okay, we're going to do this. Okay. Let me go through it again real quick. Here we go. Okay. Okay. In this section means a written justification signed by the deputy commissioner of the requesting SSA component or designee that specifies general information on the following. General information. What's going on? What are they looking for? Why are they worried about this? What are they trying to get? Right? The operational need for listening into or recording telephone conversations. Right? Why they've got to do it. Kind of what they're hoping to find, right? The telephone lines and locations where monitoring is to be performed. What your telephone number is, you know, what your other telephone number is, when they're going to access it, stuff like that. Okay. Okay, next one, the positions and titles, or a statement about the types of SSA employees involved in the listening into or recording of telephone conversations. So this is the team of people. They got to put their names on it that they're going to go and record you. Okay. The general operating times and an expiration date for the monitoring. So bottom line is, from when to when, they're going to tap your phone, listen to you, all that stuff. And then basically when they're going to stop listening. This certification of need must identify the telephone lines which will be subject to monitoring. In other words, SSA 800 number voice and text telephone lines, and include current copies of any documentation, any analysis determinations, any policies and procedures supporting the application, and the name and telephone number of a contact person in the SSA component, which is requesting authority to listen into or record telephone conversations. So, it's just like it's like a classic warrant kind of thing, the when and wheres. Why do you need to do it? When are you going to stop doing it? When are you going to start doing it? Stuff like that. 1, when the request involves listening into or recording telephone conversations for public safety purposes, the requesting component head or designee must identify the segment of the public needing protection and cite examples of the possible harm from which the public requires protection. Now, some of you may have noticed during the prior administration that certain groups, certain religious groups, certain groups of, let's just say certain people, right, were targeted by the federal government, and, church people, church people, they were targeted. That's just what happened. It's just what happened. All right. It's what happened. It's happening it's happening in the UK as well. It's worse in the UK right now. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's like, wow, bad in the UK. But the bottom line is, certain groups were targeted. And what's interesting about that is that we'll probably see at some point in the future documentation, from the Biden administration when they were, allowing this stuff to occur. And it was in preference towards another religious group, that other religious group was being targeted for safety purposes. They had to listen into those other groups and make sure, that they were not going to harm the mass new immigrants that came into this country. And so under this same premise, let's say, okay, if there was a public segment that they felt needed protection, if under Trump, it would probably be Christians. Under Biden, it would be Muslims, right? Those of the Islamic faith, right? Or for example, like under Trump, it would be, veterans, right? It would be veterans. But under the Biden administration, it might have been, I don't know. I get sort of, I mean, it was, I get kind of, I think it was helpful to the LGBTQ community. Although I got to be honest, like, I don't think he was as support. I saw a lot of harm done to the LGBTQ community. And what's weird is that, like, on the Trump side, they make it like there's this army of people that are taking over and having all of their kids go this direction. It's just not that way. And that's the thing, is like they just, with the news, the super MAGA, it's like there's an army of them. There's just not. Like, they're not. They're just not an army. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, I don't, they sell it as like, there's like this coming over the hill, and it's just, this person was there, and I get the whole locker room thing, and I get the whole bathroom thing. I get it. You know what I mean? I get the whole sports thing. It's, women really, it's not fair for these other individuals to, I get that. I get the whole thing. I get it. But, bottom line is, this whole public safety purpose, it's very wide. It's very wide. You know what I mean? So, because remember, they were, working on the transition of individuals. Like, if we had 4 more years of Biden, we would have had a significant amount of, Haitians and Africans and, Middle Easterners and South Americans who would then be on the SSI program, as part of the naturalization, where, Americans were paying their taxes and directly paying for them to be, fed, clothed, housed for the next 7 years, and I'm not passing judgment on that. I mean, you guys support whatever you want, you know what I mean? My people came here as immigrants. Like, just to clarify, when World War II got shitty, and I mean really bad, my family members, which was a combination of Christians and Jewish people, right? We had to exit stage right because we couldn't be in Germany. So then we had to not be in Ukraine or Austria. And obviously Ashkenazis, which are German Jews, we had to like move out of that. We were basically we had to get out. We had to get out. So we had to get out. World War II history. You know what happened. Next, when the request involves listening in or to recording telephone conversations from public service monitoring purposes, the requesting component head or designee must provide a statement in writing why such monitoring is necessary for measuring or monitoring the performance in the delivery of SSA service to the public, or monitoring and improving the integrity, quality, and utility of service provided to the public. Which is interesting because we don't really get to see a lot of that data. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they don't release a whole lot of data analytics about the success of their listening in programs. They create reports. I'm sure a lot of you would love to see them. I'm sure I think it would be very interesting. Okay. So, all right. So there you go. Next one, B. At least every 5 years, SSA will review the need for each determination authorizing listening and recording activities in the agency. SSA components or authorized agents involved in conducting listening in or recording activities must submit documentation as described in Section 422.710A to the Commissioner of Social Security or as designee to continue or terminate telephone service observation activities. So what you guys got to realize here too is like who they have in as commissioner plays a really big part in like who they're going to listen in on. You know what I mean? Like that's like a really crucial part of this. And now with AI backing them, man, they can super search the internet. They can super search, your bank accounts. They can super search your payroll companies and figure out who, what, when, and where. I had a recent hour. One of them, one of those private hours, the SSA went all the way back to like 2000, where they found an accounting error and said that somebody was overpaid. And then I had another one where it was like 2003. And these were recent things of like, you owe us money back to 2000. That's what they were shooting for. They're little bots, they're little artificial intelligence things. They found it. So, all right, next one. Although they're not always right. Next one, C, SSA will comply with the following controls, policies, and procedures when listening in or recording is associated with public service monitoring. One, remember that a lot of that is, we're recording you to provide better service. We're recording you to make sure our calls are prompt and our people are super cool with you, yada, yada. It's that kind of stuff. SSA, number one, will provide a message on SSA telephone lines subject to public service monitoring that will inform callers that calls on those lines may be monitored for quality assurance purposes. SSA will also continue to include information about telephone monitoring activities in SSA brochures and or pamphlets as notifications that some incoming and outgoing SSA telephone calls are monitored to ensure SSA's clients are receiving accurate and courteous service. Yes, accurate and courteous service, indeed. How many of you, I'm just curious, how many of you have gotten a little pamphlet or a recording or like a writing that said that you were being monitored? I'm just curious. Have any of you ever gotten and this is a live show. So we have people in the chat right now. So you tell me, have any of you ever, received like a booklet that said to you, hey, we're going to record some of you for public safety purposes and also to make sure our SSA employees are accurate and courteous. Hey, you know what I mean? Hey, have you ever, I'm seeing no, never, not at all. No. Yeah. I mean, I don't really see that often. I don't know if they're meeting their requirements for that. I don't know. You know what I mean? We got one. Yes. We got Gatito Oso. We got, how do I pronounce that? Oso? Gatita Oso. With an adorable, is that a doggy? I can't tell. It's such a tiny image. I can't tell. So everybody's saying no, but Oso is saying yes, who's also a member, which is amazing. And it's a silver member, which is incredible. So, okay. So, I mean, you know, Great Pyrenees. Pyrenees. Yes. Okay, cool. That's awesome. I actually don't really know that breed, so I'm going to have to look it up. But that is amazing. That is amazing. So, yeah, they do this. That's what, okay. Number 2. SSA employees authorized to listen into or record telephone calls are permitted to annotate personal identifying information about the calls, such as a person's name, social security number, address, and/or telephone number. When this information is obtained from the public service monitoring as defined in Section 422.705C, it will be used for programmatic or policy purposes. In other words, recontacting individuals to correct or supplement information relating to benefits for assessment of current/proposed policies and procedures, or to correct SSA records. Privacy Act requirements must be followed if data are retrievable by personal identifiable information. So in other words, they can record you, and if something changes, they always write these as like they're selling it like they're like just trying to be your buddy. We're just trying to be your buddy. Hey, you know, and there's nothing, look, to be fair, like they don't want to frame this stuff as like, you know, the other side of it, which is like, you know, they're collecting your information so that they can use it. You know, I mean, that's the reality. You know what I mean? That's why when people are like, you know, that's why I always like when people always ask me, they're like, how much do you really trust the SSA? And I'm like, well, if I had a fishing pole, right, and I had a lure on it, and I was really good at like, you know what I mean, casting that puppy real far that way, about 20 yards past where it landed. That's about, you know what I mean, where, you know, because you got to keep an eye on them. I mean, how many of you have called the SSA? You know, you call the SSA and they tell you one thing, then you call the SSA the next day, they tell you another thing. Then you call the SSA, you know, and you get a manager and they tell you something different. You know, it happens. And it's tough too. Let's just take a moment and realize, like, it's tough to train people how all this stuff works. Nobody knows it all. Nobody knows it all. Nobody knows it all. Not the commissioners, not the deputies, not the blah, 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 blah. You know, there's a ton of levels down. Then you get to the managers, then you get to the field office. You know what I mean? They don't, nobody knows it all. Not even the policy department people know it all. I doubt more than maybe 1 or 2, maybe 10, have actually read all the SSA policy. I doubt it. All right. SSA will take appropriate corrective action when possible if information obtained from monitoring indicates SSA may have taken an incorrect action which could affect the payment of or eligibility to SSA benefits. All right. Now, that's a really cute way of saying, you know, if they collect some information from you where you tell them something that you may have not realized that it may change your benefits, right? Then they will take appropriate corrective action when possible if information obtained from monitoring indicates SSA may have taken an incorrect action which could affect the payment of or eligibility of SSA benefits. So if they do something wrong, they on their honor, known as Section 3, will take appropriate action to correct their incorrect action, which could affect the payment of or eligibility of your SSA benefits. On their honor, they will, Section 3, they will fix themselves. 4, telephone instruments subject to public service monitoring will be conspicuously labeled. So they're going to tell you when you get on the phone with them, okay? 5, consent from both parties is needed to tape record SSA calls for public service monitoring purposes. They tell you. The recording. Okay, so the recordings and records pertaining to the listening in or to recording of any conversations covered by this subpart shall be used, safeguarded, and destroyed in accordance with SSA records management programs. All right. Now, we need to specifically go over right over here. All right, here we go. And this is from, let's see, 20 CFR 422.710. No, this is just 710 again. All right, so it's just, let me see if there's anything else on here. Scope of the subpart, collection activities. No, this is just when I hate when they print it like this. This is how they usually print it in the law manuals. I hate it. It's so like, who wants to read it like that? You know what I mean? Come on now. All right. So now you know. Look, I'll do another video. It's late. It's Thursday, super early morning. So I'll do another video where I explain like how they buy your records, how they get access to what you've been saying to people, how they buy your text messages. I'll do another video on that so you kind of understand. And then I'll go through also, why they're usually doing it. Like, if you're some of you are like, I'm freaking out. You don't need to freak out. If they think somebody's earning some on the side and maybe lying a little, if they think somebody's not as disabled as they claim they are, and they've got some evidence here and there, that U-Haul truck was paid for and driven by the disabled person, it's, it just, look, it is what it is. Although I will say this, in my defense, there was a person who got very upset in the comments about how disabled people should be allowed to ride their motorcycles. I don't know, guys. I just don't see back issue people being found disabled nowadays. They were back in the day, but nowadays I just don't see people with like traumatic back injuries being able to ride their Harley. To me, it feels like, to some degree, it feels like it just wouldn't be that wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be ethical, right? All right. With that said, we've gone over now the rules with a general overview that apply to when the Social Security Administration is allowed to listen in, when they're allowed to tap your phone, when they're allowed to buy phone records, when they're allowed to buy text messages and stuff like that. We'll go more in depth, and I'll explain to you what they do and what they look for, and what are some common situations related to it that you should keep in mind. All right, Attorney Walter Hnot, please remember to like and subscribe. I don't see a lot of likes there. Hit that like button. With that said, please remember to like and subscribe. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions for free. So later tomorrow night, I'll go live and answer questions. Also, if you really want to help me out, and I really love when I see these in the morning, head over to Disability Resolution Law Firm on the Google page, or Disability Resolution Florida on the Google page. Throw some stars up there if you like. I always appreciate seeing those. With that said, bottom line, if you need a consultation, I do the free live one where you get 5 to 7 minutes on Mondays and Thursdays. But if you need a full 30 minutes or a full 60 minutes, and then we always do 70 to 75 minutes for the 60-minute buy-ins. There is a little contract below where you can do a consultation with me and kind of feed me the information, and I'll tell you what's going on from my experience, what I've seen, and stuff like that. I'll catch you all a little bit later. This is going to be the only video tonight because I'm super tired. I had a hearing and a bunch of those consultations today, and then a bunch of other stuff. But I will catch you later. And then, of course, I had also the homeless office. I literally, on Wednesday, it's homeless. I work with the homeless on Wednesday, if you don't know that. I'm America's most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney. You might be able to argue popular, but whatever. The point is, I will catch you tomorrow, and we'll continue to have fun, learn, and just be as informed as we can in our lives related to the things that are important to us. Catch you later. Have a wonderful night, and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much, and bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.